Hey, get ready for an exciting episode today. It's the holiday season, and maybe you're feeling all jolly, but maybe you're feeling stressed. We have Roger Landry with us to deal with those issues.
Welcome to Something More with Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd is a certified financial planner practitioner and senior vice president and financial advisor at Wealth Enhancement Group, one of the nation's largest registered investment advisors. We call it Something More because we'd like to talk not only about those important dollar and cents issues, but also the quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Here he is, your fulfillment facilitator, your partner in prosperity, advising clients on Cape Cod and across the country. Here's your host, J. Christopher Boyd.
Welcome, and thanks for being with us for another episode of Something More with Chris Boyd. I'm here with Jeff Perry. We are both hosts of the show, financial advisors with Wealth Enhancement and the AMR team. Joining us as our guest, as was referenced, we've got Roger Landry, a great guest. We've had him before. Welcome back, Roger. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Chris. Glad to be here. Jeff, good to be with you.
I suppose I should be saying Dr. Roger Landry.
Yes, I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Some people use that term.
You have written books we want to talk about. You have been on our show to talk about the way to think about healthy aging and living well in retirement. And we want to continue that conversation because there's always so much to think about and revisit. And, you mentioned before we got started something about stress being one of the biggest leading causes for disease. I don't know. I'm having an unhealthy day. I just came out of a meeting. I'm all stressed out. I gotta de-stress.
Well, don't worry, Chris. When you retire, there won't be any stress at all, right, Roger?
No, that's not. I wish that were true. It's not.
Well, you stress about your health. You stress about your well-being, I suppose, right?
Well, you folks know more than anyone that finances are a major stress in people's lives before and after retirement, especially with the things that they can't control. You help them control what you can and help them through that. But there are things that happen in the world, and there are those of us who worry a lot about finances. Am I going to run out? How long am I going to live? What is my lifespan going to be? And am I going to get a health condition that's going to drain the bank and all those sort of things? And that's not pleasant. But the stress we're seeing in medicine is a contributor to almost 80% of the visits that we see to medical treatment facilities, and it is probably. We're also seeing a lot of cancer in young people now, which is a new phenomenon. The data is really very scary. And a recent paper from Harvard, there are many causes, the environment, maybe nutrition, but the recent paper from Harvard felt that stress was a major contributor to this. Younger people are living, right from day one, for many of them, with stress. Right. We grew up when we went in when the street lights went on, that sort of thing, but it is a very stressful world, and these young people are living with it. So stress is something that we need to put up front. Why am I stressed? Most stress is caused by our thoughts.
The way we deal with information, the way we process things, huh? Yeah.
Exactly. There are stressful situations out there. You get a flat tire. There's those that will kick the car and swear to the tire gods and worry about being late and all this. And then there are those who are going to say, I've got a flat tire. I got to deal with it. Call a number, change the flat, whatever. So how we process a stressful situation is the stress that we're talking about, whether we have it or we don't. And so we really want to live lives where we at least know that stress is hurting us and do all we can to reduce it. And you folks do a lot about that relative to finances.
The car I recently bought doesn't have a jack. So
does it have a spare?
It doesn't have a spare.
Yeah.
So I'm a little concerned. Maybe the guy kicking the tire. Anyway,
well, you're driving.
You have AAA though, so I'll be calling them, I'm sure. Yeah.
You're creating a stressful situation when there's no stress, no tire spare in the back tire.
Anyway, that it's interesting you say that that this is one of those challenges that people have, and I think in our society I find a lot of retirees that I know are consumed by news programming, whichever station you might listen to. It's geared toward getting you irritated almost at the other side, whichever team you're rooting for, the other guy. And that's got to be adding stress to people's lives, I would think.
It has to
The
be.
agitation, the anxiety, the frustration that seems to be, embedded in that programming so much,
Yeah, I honest, Chris, I couldn't agree more. My wife's a political junkie, although she has learned now to ration that. But with
Mhm.
the 24-hour news cycle, we had Cronkite, at night and
Yeah.
Yeah,
morning
yeah.
show,
Had a half hour.
and then we
Yeah.
were free of it, But
And you were up to date.
We were fine.
Yeah.
now you can binge watch bad news, and or
Yeah.
stressful news, and so I do believe it's a very stressful environment. I love to be able to see the world in a better place, but it's right now it's pretty divisive, and
Yeah.
that
But that
is
does lead to the financial part of it. You were talking about people's anxiety around finances and market, disruptions inevitably occur as part of the way investments work. It's the norm. It's not the exception that there will be volatile markets. And sometimes we like the volatility because it's going up, but sometimes we don't like the volatility because it's going down. So, this is the nature of the beast. And I think a lot of times that anxiety about, policy for this or policy for that, or, what's being said today, how's that going to affect the markets? And, it does carry over to, create this kind of perpetual anxiety almost around this.
Yeah, true, Chris. In many ways we're similar. We both talk people off cliffs. Maybe sometimes I do it literally, and you do it, from a financial
Figuratively, yeah, yeah,
point. But and because I think you do a tremendous service by bringing some sanity, some rationality, and just a new way to look at it. Whatever's happening, and that's what we were talking about with stress. How you process what is actually going on, or what you're imagining is going to happen. And I think that you're a very much therapist when it comes to that.
There's an element of it. I will say that we're not trained as therapists, but you do have an element of trying to help people keep perspective around these issues and trying to set them up for success around the tension, the stress that comes with markets. We often talk about buckets and the notion of having some low risk money, some bank money, stable money, and then varying degrees of risk so that there's some with greater risk. But when there's these disruptions, I know I have my safety money. And it might be psychological in part, not so much,
Sure.
we're looking at it in aggregate, but it does help one to cope, I guess, a little better with the anxieties that come with volatility and the nature of investing.
Most definitely.
I would like to talk a little bit about, though I think of your focus, your um, expertise in helping people navigate retirement and setting themselves up for a healthy longevity. Having this combination of having a fulfilling and healthy life that can last a long time, right? And as I think about the retirement experience, there's a wide scope, right? I start off I'm on vacation from work.
Vacation mode. Yeah.
I've kind of stepped away from the work experience, and I am going to travel. I have all these these visions of all the fun things that would golf every day, or whatever it is that that excites you, right? So, and then by the other end of retirement, we're dealing with chronic issues. We may have more aches and pains, more problems to speak of, and the challenges that can, so into our lives at that point. So how do we think about trying to make that experience better, more fulfilling, and healthier along the way in a variety of ways of thinking about health? Um, where should we begin?
Well, when we talk about healthy longevity, it has become clear with the research that how we age is mostly dependent upon the choices we make, upon our lifestyle. We used to think it was genes, and we primarily genes, and genes play a relatively small part, about 30% at the most. And but it's lifestyle, so it's how we live our lives. Now, the first thing I'd like to address, well, there are four things. How much we move, how much we stay connected to others, how much we continue to use our brains and learn new things. And lastly is the one I want to address right now, and that has to do with meaning and purpose. We go through life, some of the things we chose, but some of the things came onto us, and we had purpose, our family, our career. And we have visions of what we'll do when we retire, but sometimes we don't know ourselves very well. I mean, this is particularly the case with people in a high, intense jobs. High risk. They deal with high risk. They're making a lot of very important decisions. They're important people, CEOs, and then they have a major change. I had a friend who was a chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And so when he retired, the next day...
That sounds like a stressful job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, a little bit stressful. So the next day after his retirement, he goes out and he gets in the back seat of the car and he said, nothing happened.
Yeah.
Some people are
no
not
one drove, huh? He's used to his driver taking him everywhere. That's
it. Some people are not realistically thinking about retirement, what it means, and how they see themselves. What am I? And we have to have meaning and purpose in our lives, or we wither, and that purpose changes with time. So, I mean, a preparation should be financial, of course, so that you have the freedom to make a choice as to how you want to spend your life and what will be your meaning and purpose. And that's a very important part. But it's something we should think about ahead of time, but realize it changes. So we do need a purpose in life, something to get us out of bed, and that keeps us healthy. And when we don't have it, we wither. So it's paying attention to how physical we are, and that's during our whole lives. You don't have to run marathons, just move. And in a nutshell, we're finding such great things about our brain with neuroplasticity. This is the ability to rewire our brains. We rewire our brains in response to injury or sickness or whatever we want to be able to do. This is a magnificent thing, but it requires us to learn new things. Keep healthy, learn new things so our brains stay healthy. Social connection. We are social beings, and people are annoying, yeah, and they can be, and over the holidays, you get your crazy uncle and you got others, and your work, but we need each other, and we're better together. And without it, in isolation, we don't do well at all. So these are all things that we should think about before retirement and after retirement to make sure that we keep moving, keep learning, keep socially connected, and make sure that we have a meaning and purpose that brings us some satisfaction with what we're doing.
Just as a quick aside, and I'll turn things to Jeff, I had a friend who was in his 80s, and he was worried about cognitive decline. He had, I don't know if it was family history or whatever, but he knew that he was prone to this concern. And he spent a lot of energy with cardiovascular exercise because he had been told that was very helpful to the brain in retaining, to preventing some of this cognitive decline. Is that true? Is that factual, or is that his impression?
It is absolutely true. We're finding such marvelous, optimistic things. Actually, dementia is on the decline because there are so many. Well, not the numbers, because with the demographic, of our
Yeah.
population. People who are in the zone
per capita, so to speak. Huh? Yeah.
But it's actually the percentage of people who get it is going down. And
great.
that is probably related to better cardiac care, better care for about cholesterol and diet, and a sense that moving is important. That's certainly one thing.
That's great.
But it is absolutely true. There was a long-term study in Minnesota with nuns, and they were living a long time, and so they were studying them. And during that, when a nun would pass, they would do an autopsy, and they found in several nuns everything that an Alzheimer's brain, essentially tangles and plaques, and yet these nuns never had any symptoms of it. That was a big surprise then, but we know now that things like a lifestyle where you are physically active, that you are socially connected, these are important. All these things are important for the brain too, and that you challenge your brain, that you can have the anatomy of dementia, but not necessarily have the symptoms. You can at least delay the symptoms in many people. So that's incredibly optimistic. And then I already talked about neuroplasticity. This is the lifelong ability of the ability to rewire the brain. And so to the extent that you're active and getting blood to the head, and that you challenge yourself by learning new things, that can be small things. Learn a word a day or learn Mandarin. It doesn't matter. We see on brain scans the brain growing new tissue, getting thicker in these areas. And this is so, this is neuroplasticity. One more quick story, though. There was this lady at Harvard, Jill Bolte Taylor was her name. She had a stroke at 39. She was a neuroanatomist, so she knew the brain. So she knew what she had to do. So 5 years later, you can see her on a TED Talk. She couldn't, after the stroke, she couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, and she was severely limited. But with neuroplasticity, she knew that the cells that died were never coming back. They're gone. But she was able to grow new pathways around the dead area so that she could accomplish what she wanted to do. It's a very optimistic story. I mean, it's scary, dementia. And we're all seeing it. I'm certainly in my age group, seeing things, but happening. And it's sad, particularly sad for the family. But there are things that we can do about it. And exploring meds, exploring new things, learning more and more about neuroscience, all I think going in the right direction for what is otherwise a scary thing.
Yeah, amazing.
Roger, I want to go back to your book, which we haven't mentioned yet, Live Long and Die Short. I know it's still out there because I saw it, still for sale. So people are interested, they should check it out. What was your goal when you wrote that book? What were you trying to say about that?
The average trajectory of a life still, unfortunately, is that we're born, we grow, we get better and better. Think of a curve going up, up, up. And then at the top, we're adults and we're running on all cylinders. Everything's just going great. And then things start to happen. And, a little joint thing, maybe a little cancer scare and things. And we start to decline. Now we're living longer. So we have the longevity part, that we've, the average life expectancy at the beginning of the 20th century was like 47. And so we've almost doubled that in a little over 100 years. And so, but there's no guarantee about the quality of that. So what we want to do, Jeff, is to stay at the highest level possible and then basically fall off a cliff if we can, for our terminal event being quick. It's less expensive, it's less painful. And we're finding that living a lifestyle that we talk about that pays attention to those four things and limits the amount of stress that you have, that indeed is, you are more likely then to stay at the highest level possible and then have hopefully a shorter decline. Ashley Montague says, die young, as late as possible.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was trying to get at. Some people have asked me, does that mean I'll be shorter when I die? Yeah, you probably will, but that's
probably,
not what I was getting at. It's all about having the ability to influence your life. So your lifespan is one thing that may be longer, but your health span is what you really want to increase, so that almost equals your lifespan. And so then we have that curve that sort of drops off at the end rather than a long decline.
I was at the gym the other day and I was talking to a gentleman. He's a little bit older than me. He's I don't know, I don't want to guess. I'm just going to say he was 70, 72. And he was frustrated with whatever he was doing. And he said on the way out, he goes, I don't think this is for me anymore. It just hurts too much, takes too long to recover. And I see that as kind of conflicting with, I agree with everything you say, but I see those feelings conflicting with the let's keep moving, let's stay outside, because it gets harder in many respects as you get older to do the things that you say, I'm going to do when I retire. I'm going to keep going to the gym. In this case, for this gentleman, I believe that's probably true. But when it starts to hurt, or when there's fatigue, or when there's injury and it takes a long time to recover, how should people look at that? Because I can see why people just, maybe not purposefully, but they slow down because of all these things.
Frustration or whatever.
No, we're no Pollyanna on this, not I or other those of us who are in healthy longevity, preventive medicine. Things do happen. Excuse me. The trick is that we have to accommodate. First of all, there are many stages of prevention. There's primary prevention, where you prevent disease from happening. And then there's secondary prevention, when you try to, and tertiary, when you try to limit the effect of something that has happened. So primary is great. And, doing the 4 things makes primary prevention possible, so that you avoid many of the things that other people would or that even you might normally get had you not paid attention. But if something does come, we have magnificent medicine, we have, medication, we have procedures. I mean, our parents, when a joint went bad, they took to the rocking chair and led a sedentary life, and they died. And now we have the ability to keep moving. You have to be realistic about it. You maybe you did run marathons when you were 40, even 50, but that's, if you can, well, God bless you. But the fact is that's not probably the way it's going to be. But walking is terrifically underrated. It is so healthy. I mean, as far as weight control and the functioning of the mind, as well as overall health. So so accommodating. So I had a patient who was definitely destined for a heart attack. There was no question. Tony was a smoker. We got him to quit that, but he was overweight. He was pre-diabetic. He was hypertensive, and he lived a sedentary lifestyle. So in preparing the book, I investigated an approach to change, be it organizational or lifestyle, that the way the Japanese approach it. And it's called Kaizen, Kaizen. And basically it's in small steps. And because when we do it in small steps, we're much more successful than the New Year's resolution where, well, I'll lose 57 pounds by next week. That doesn't happen. And actually there's an actual physiologic part of the brain, where that prevents us from being successful with those big jumps. But in small, so I said to Tony, all I want you to do next week is just stand up during TV commercials. That's it? Yeah, that's it. And then the next week, he was all proud when he came in. I said, okay, now walk in place. Okay, he's all proud of that. And I said, okay, Tony, I want you to take 100 more steps a day than you do right now. Get a pedometer. And so over small steps, and you had to be patient, but over a year, he got off all of his meds. He's no longer hypertensive. He's no longer pre-diabetic. He's lost over 50 pounds, and he's living a lifestyle that's active because he likes it and he feels good and he gets good feedback. But it was all in small steps. So basically the message is, yes, getting older isn't for sissies, and it does require accommodation, but there's no need to give up, because it's never too late to make a significant difference. And if we just are patient with ourselves and realistic and take small steps towards change, it'll happen.
Yeah, those behavioral changes can add up to big gains. I feel like I be missing something if I didn't ask you what you think of this latest craze. We have them, every 10 years or so.
I
But
was
what's going to
thinking about that.
save us? So should Tony just shoot himself up with Ozempic and he'll be fine? I mean,
GL, what are they
that's
called?
kind GL. I don't know, but it seems like there's not it's difficult to sit and watch the news, period, but it's difficult to sit and watch the news for any few days without seeing some story about this alleged miracle drug that's going to solve all your problems.
Well, they seem to work, and so far there are negative consequences that can be serious, but they're not too prevalent. And so I believe that in the hands of someone who is prescribing it, because the weight is a major health threat to that person. That's cardiac, that's cognitive, that's pulmonary, and joints. That's a major risk. And this drug, if in medication, if it can get that weight off, that's a major start to a healthier life. To depend only on that, I don't think that's the best thing relative to lifestyle commitment to aging in a better way. We're always looking for the easy way, and the fact is, there's no really easy way. I think it's sometimes it takes a long time to see what any potential negative effects are to begin to surface. I'm certainly pleased that for those people who are at high risk, getting a whole lot less risk. But I just don't know what's down the road, and so I think that I personally I would recommend that if you're going to use it for a short time while you change your lifestyle, and then
behavioral changes,
do it on your own rather than just depend upon the medication.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, it's a good way to frame it. So then you can be in a position where you might not need it because you have a more healthy lifestyle. You keep the weight off, be active, and so forth.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very interesting. Would you repeat the 4 pillars that you mentioned? I think as we wind down, I want to kind of come back to those as sort of the central core focus here.
When I wrote the book, there's so many books out there. It took me a long time to even get down to writing it because most of the books deal with fads, something new, the latest thing, and the quickest thing, and the easiest thing. And I felt that to reach more people, it was important that that we deal with the core. For 99% of the time that we humans have been on the earth, we were hunter-gatherers. I mean, that's hard for us to wrap our head around, but
a lot of motion.
We walked a lot. We were very tight socially. We didn't learn from books and things, but we learned from the environment, and we were always learning because it was a matter of survival. And everyone had a role. The old had a role. No one was marginalized. The old guided the society, and it was the blue zones today, those areas where people live to be older and really be vital and healthy. These are the lifestyle they live is very similar to what we have been living for most of the time we've been on Earth. So it's not a leap of faith to think, or rationality to think maybe the way we were for such a long time, that's what we need to be healthy. And when it's core, namely movement, we are creatures of movement. When we move, we think better, our heart's better, our muscles are better, our bones are better, everything is better when we move. And I don't use the E word, I use the M word, not exercise, move, just move. And unfortunately, most of us are still sedentary, and a recent Mayo paper said sitting is the new smoking relative to risk to our, and it is. He did the work, and so move. And we used to accept, even in medical school, that's what I learned, that our brains developed. They were at their best in maybe the 20s, and then it was all lost with no replenishment. Well, now we know it's not true with neuroplasticity, and we can indeed, if we use our brains, we can indeed keep our mind functioning at its very best. and make it much less likely. And as I said, dementia is actually going down worldwide, not in numbers because of the demographic, but it is. And the social connection part, we unfortunately at the Industrial Revolution, we marginalized older adults because they couldn't produce. Before that time, and for most of the time we've been on Earth, well, as I was saying, elders were considered cultural treasures.
Hmm.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to talk to an elder who survived, who's still around, who's seen a whole lot of stuff?
Yeah.
Today the young kids say, well, they don't know technology, and well, that's not true. They actually do, and they're learning it faster than anyone. But the answer to that is, yeah, you're right. They deal with more core issues.
Judgment, wisdom, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And so why wouldn't you tap into that? I mean, but we marginalize our older adults, and then the whole idea of purpose. Where Americans in particular are very goal oriented, production oriented. We race around and we accomplish things, and we relate that to our purpose, and it is our purpose at a particular time in life. But when we think about retirement, or we change life, lose a spouse, change where we live, change a job, or leave work altogether prematurely, even before retirement, we don't handle that so well if we don't have a purpose. And most of the purposes that I have seen in people that really are powerful have to do with other living things, people, plants, the planet, animals. And the Dalai Lama says that, our purpose in life should be to help others. And if we can't help them, let's not hurt them, and so I think you can see that many of the things happening in our society are taking us away from some of those core things that I've been talking about. They're not hard to bring back into your life. We don't have to be hunter-gatherers. Just, walk more, learn something new, use your brain, stay connected to others in a substantial way, and have a purpose that gets you out of bed and you feel proud of. Those are not hard things to do if you're aware, but they're magical. They're better than any medication. They're better than any surgical procedure. They're better than any lottery winnings, any of that. It's much better for your health.
And have a good financial plan.
And have a good financial plan.
Way to bring that back home there, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We're living longer, and so we have, it's realistic. We need that, and if only from a health standpoint to reduce your stress, but
that's right.
Also to enjoy life, have a high quality.
Yeah, we know it doesn't buy those other things, but it can certainly make those other things a lot more manageable when you have the resources to take care of yourself, to enjoy the retirement in this case that you deserve, and to not stress.
Yeah, and having a plan does reduce stress.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about a lot, Jeff, when talking about sometimes a financial plan is permission. Sometimes because we often think, oh, I might not be able to afford that. You can, or whatever it might be. We get unduly concerned, and maybe we don't need to, or maybe it's empowering to say, oh, this is a trajectory that's not going to work. We need to start considering alternatives. Right. What would those be? And that's, again, it as much as it might be a circumstance that is stressful, dealing with the circumstance helps to relieve the stress of the circumstance. Do you know what I mean?
Something as simple as a vacation. If you have a financial plan and you have, say, $10,000 in your financial plan every year to go on a major vacation, and your plan is highly likely to succeed, you go on that vacation, stay within your plan, and you can enjoy it rather than having no idea of spending $10,000. Changes your financial outlook, changes your financial longevity, and then you're just worrying about what you're spending on your vacation. It's really, it's not just a financial plan. It goes on, it flows over to all those other things in life, including stress.
We are very creative about things to worry about. You know, that's a big problem. I understand that people save their lives and they're conservative with their money, and they get to a point where, you know, they're retired and they're well off, but they're still afraid to spend money. You know, and
we see it more times than you can imagine, Roger.
no, oh yeah, well, I'll bet. And so again, your therapist part of you should kick in, and I like that idea. Budget for it, and therefore, you know, it's like
Permission.
okay, it's a roof every 20 years or whatever. You know, this is
Whatever
a
it
vacation
is.
every year. You know, I just got back from 6 weeks in Europe, and boy, did we ever worry about whether we should do that. But I'll tell you, that was
A good
fantastic.
experience.
You know, it was a great experience. Someone stole my telephone, but my cell phone.
Oh, that's frustrating.
But you know, in a way,
Yeah, maybe they were helping you out.
Yeah. Took some stress away when you did that, right?
yeah,
No
I
emails
guess-
Write it down. I'll
worry
get
about.
one later.
yeah. Well, but it's a good way to look at the world. Things happen,
It is.
and again, how
Right.
we look at it. But I, if you can do anything to have people take advantage of the life they've lived, the accruing wealth over their life period, if you can get them to use that to increase the quality of their life, reduce the stress in their life, you're better than any MD or PhD or whatever. You're doing a great service.
Roger, you are one of our favorites. We love having you on. Thank you for making the time. I think this is the kind of thing that's parallel to what we do, but it's really an important part of the whole retirement experience and thinking through, you know, the money's only part of the picture. It's all for purpose. And this helps keep some of that in perspective. Roger, you have a podcast. We mentioned your book. Let's mention it again and share how people can learn more from the podcast and so on.
Sure. The podcast is, and anywhere you get podcasts, it's called The Bright Side of Longevity. And I have a co-host, Danielle, with an angelic voice, very smart lady. And you were on it.
We need one of
It
those.
was a
We
lot
need
of
one
fun.
those.
Thank you for having me on.
You were a great candidate, and we appreciate with your expertise. And we address issues like this, just everyday issues that will help us to live a longer, a healthier life, and with less stress. So we love doing that. We have over 100, 110 episodes, and it comes out usually once a month. Variety of topics, but all pretty much health related. So thanks for bringing that up. And the book is Live Long, Die Short, still available on Amazon, or people can get a signed version if they write to me, and they can get to me at our Landry at mymasterpieceliving.com.
Pay attention to Roger Landry. He is an expert at this and great advice ongoing. Maybe check out that podcast. I think you'll enjoy it. With that being said, thanks for being with us, Roger. Jeff, thanks again. Until next time, everybody, keep striving for something.
Thank you for listening to Something More with Chris Boyd. Call us for help, whether it's for financial planning or portfolio management, insurance concerns, or those quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Whatever's on your mind, visit us at somethingmorewithchrisboyd.com or call us toll-free at 866-771-8901. Or send us your questions to amr-info@wealthenhancement.com. You're listening to Something More with Chris Boyd Financial Talk Show. Wealth Enhancement Advisory Services and J. Christopher Boyd provide investment advice on an individual basis to clients only. Proper advice depends on a complete analysis of all facts and circumstances. The information given on this program is general financial comments and cannot be relied upon as pertaining to your specific situation. Wealth Enhancement Group cannot guarantee that using the information from this show will generate profits or ensure freedom from loss. Listeners should consult their own financial advisors or conduct their own due diligence before making any financial decisions.